hold on. Good morning. I'm Detective Romine with Newberry Township Police. Thank you for coming today. And I just wanted to introduce myself. We have several people here for the presentation. We have people from the Department of Aging, the Attorney General's Office, and New Cumberland Federal Credit Union. The purpose of this slideshow, next slide. The purpose of our presentation is to educate and inform the public on some scams that are common in today's society. We're too well connected, and these scams are hitting us from all different directions. Our department has taken several cases from multiple victims. Over the last 6 months, I'll go through some of the numbers, and you'll see the numbers are staggering on the amount of loss just within our jurisdiction. So we want to educate the public and let them know how to prevent themselves from becoming a victim of fraud, scams, and other elder abuse, methods to report, and also resources that are available for further information. Next slide. Common schemes that we see listed here, as you see, romance scam, text scams, emails, government impersonations, and so forth. Local victims, currently we have romance scams. Within the last 6 months, one victim was scammed over $75,000. Technical support scam, gentleman was scammed out of $30,000 using gift cards. Grandparent scams, another one was scammed out of $50,000, one victim on each of these cases. Sweepstakes, lottery scams, several victims, totaling $65,000. Another victim, personal bank data breach, was over $39,000 just for these individuals. We have multiple other scams, including Bitcoin and other scams. Next slide. In today's agenda, I'd like to welcome everybody here in the building here. We have exits here to the left, also the way you came in, and we have restrooms back to the center. If you have any questions, just ask one of the individuals here in the back. Today I have the Department of Aging. I also have the Attorney General's Office and New Cumberland Federal Credit Union. Those presenters are very well versed on areas within their technical expertise, and they will provide a detailed introduction and information of their scams and how to prevent them. Next slide. And these are some of the online resources. Pending any questions? All right. I'll be followed by Denise Getchin of the Pennsylvania Department of Aging, along with a representative from York County.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Everybody, good morning. My name is Jerry Mitchell. I'm an outreach specialist for the Pennsylvania Office of Attorney General. Uh, it is an honor to be here and in front of folks who understand and who have been through the mill when it comes to identity theft and have this discussion on identity theft. I've been tracking this stuff since the 90s, showing my age a bit here, but since dial-up, since Netscape, I've been tracking this for a while. So when it comes to identity theft, bringing in someone like me into a position like this 10 years ago, when crime and technology started to intersect to a point where they need someone to understand and keep up with the momentum of it. And now I think everyone in this room and beyond this room will agree that we are way overconnected as a society. How many of you would agree with that? We are way overconnected as a society. But when you've got 30 to 40 trillion dollars, depending on the connectivity, it's not going anywhere. So we are going to have to learn to better protect ourselves, and basically if something does happen, something pops off in our life, what to do about it. Again, when it comes to identity theft, everybody has kind of, and I think when a lot of folks talk about identity theft, they really think of it kind of like maybe one or two dimensional. You'd be surprised from what angles it can come from. That is what we are going to discuss this morning. We are going to have an in-depth discussion on it. What is it? How does it happen? And what to do about it. Okay? In a world where there is so much connectivity and so much data and so many satellites above us, I think a lot of us don't really realize just how much connectivity there is out there. And I can tell you right now, just up in the sky right now, there's over 19,000 satellites in the sky. I'm going to say that again. There's over 19,000 satellites in the sky. You ever catch an Uber or a Lyft and it tells you where to be at? Exactly. Hey, listen, your driver is this far away and they'll be there in X amount of time. That kind of connectivity, it takes satellites, multiple hundreds of satellites to get that kind of coordination. Google, Microsoft, Apple, all the hundreds of satellites that are up in the world, up in the sky right now, over 19,000. And with all that connectivity, things can go bump in the night, or information can get stolen or shared without our knowledge. And that's where identity theft really comes into play. Exposure of information. So now let's go into our discussion. What is identity theft? It occurs when an unauthorized party uses your information personally or fraudulently again. Identify information such as your name, your address, social security numbers, credit cards, bank account information to assume your identity in order to commit fraud or other criminal acts. Someone wants your information and they do not want it just to be kind. Look, we're talking about, what does identity theft generally lead to? Money disappearing. And that's what we're going to have a real deep discussion on. The types of identity theft that are out there, folks. And there are so many. I really wanted to just hone down to, and by the way, on every other slide, you're going to see a QR code right there. That is for my business card. If you were to take your camera out and you were to pretty much zoom in on that and take your zoom your camera lens on that, you'll be able to pull up my business card and you can save it to your phone. Yeah, I'm a techie by trade, so you're gonna get little nuances like that out of me. Financial identity theft. This is the most common. And by the way, how many people in here know someone who's been a victim of identity theft? Okay, if I had asked that question in 2009 or 2008, I might have got one hand, maybe. Usually I got none. Nowadays, it's common to have just about half or all the room raise their hand. Okay, when someone uses another person's information for financial gain, tax identity theft. What are we in right now? Tax season. People are going to do this. This type of identity theft involves fraudsters getting access to your personal information, which is then used to file a tax return and get a refund. Your refund. Our refund. Medical identity theft. And in medical identity theft, a fraudster will use your personal information to receive medical care in your name. Either they're getting care or they're getting some sort of medical devices. There have been some folks, and they will family member, somebody they know really well, they got an injury, they go to the hospital, or just use my information, that's illegal. You gotta let folks know when they do something like that, that's medical identity theft. They may meanwhile trying to get the person services or get them help, but they're committing fraud. You gotta let them know, even on if they're thinking of it in a good natured way, they have now assumed the wrong side of it. Employment identity theft. You may use your information to get a job or pass a background check. Things like this happen. Child identity theft, it's all cruel, but this strikes a new chord here. Most children under 16 don't have credit reports, so it's possible for a fraudster to open credit accounts in their name undetected. Some child identity theft victims may not learn of the activity until they apply for student loans or a job. I know in the last 2 years, and I'm just gonna dwell on the one because it involved child identity theft, didn't realize they had a house put in their name. There was a home put in their name. I came across 2 cases of deed fraud in the last 2 years, and the one involved child identity theft. That just blew my mind. Senior identity theft. Senior citizens may be particularly vulnerable to identity theft because they may be more trusting and less able to recognize a scam. Folks, our seniors come from the generation of Eisenhower, Roosevelt, JFK, and my personal favorite, Harry S. Truman. Our seniors come from a generation where a handshake and somebody's word meant something. Buildings were built, roads were put down, fields were tended to, business transactions all went ongoing, and in so many cases, based on a handshake. Somebody's word was good. And they carried that with them. And they still have that instilled inside them. Then in a new age like this, here come fraudsters preying and playing on that trait they have, that good-natured trait. I know who I'm talking to in this room. I know who I'm in front of. I know the generation you come from. You come from a generation where you built very big things and you didn't scare so easy. I like to call you the Walter Cronkite generation. Because again, that was an era, it was such a different era. But again, right now, this is what we're going through, and this is what we are making sure awareness is raised and people are led to this kind of identity theft. Just a few more. Estate identity theft is talked about, oh, this is a different type. This occurs when a fraudster uses personal information of a deceased person to steal money and open new accounts. My friend Calvin died 3 years ago. He and I met when we were 11 years old. And middle school, high school, college, buying our first homes, we went through the hills and valleys of life together. He died way too soon. After he passed, for the next, I think it was like 3 to 4 months, his family had to go through it. People were calling his job, pretending to be family members, trying to get information, basically to commit fraud with. I'm just keeping it mild here, but again, this is what they were doing. Sister Lisa was telling me, no, we did not call, no, his job could call, did anyone from your family call us? And again, they had to keep telling his place of employment. Calvin was a nurse. And again, this kept happening. Criminal identity theft. All identity theft is criminal, but this particularly type means someone who is arrested provides your information to law enforcement. And you tell me, have you ever come across anything like that, Kevin? Yeah, absolutely. I know it got to happen to in Jersey. He had to keep going back. He's here. Somebody keeps giving his information. Some guy in Jersey keeps giving his information out. So he has to keep going back to Jersey to prove it's not him. But this right here is something I've dealt with a lot. I think all of us have synthetic, where you mix the truth with some lies. Okay? A fraudster can create fake identities using fake or real information, or a combination of the two. On the streets of Queens, you can get a driver's license and a social security card, 2 for $400. Identity theft, these kind of individuals and these people are evil. The more you buy, the cheaper it gets. They are in business. You want 10, you want 20 of each, it gets cheaper by the pound, so to speak. These are the types of identity theft, but again, What is the goal? Numbers. I don't care if it's an account number. I don't care if it's some sort of identifying number, a routing number, social security number. Numbers lead to money. These are the numbers in our life we need to protect, all of us. Protecting our numbers is very, very important. Numbers lead to money. We are all identified in the tech world. It's called the primary key. This number identifies each one of us. Okay, you ever go to like Kohl's or Target or something like that? You want to buy something? Oh, I don't have my card with me. Or you go to Giants and you're just like, oh wow, I don't have that little thing that gives me a discount. What do they say? Okay, well, what's your phone number? That identifies you. I don't know. I just did it last night. When you're single, you got to do this stuff. You're just like, oh yeah, I gotta keep going. But again, what I didn't have the little identifier, the little thing that you on my keys. What happens? Well, what's your phone number? That is a primary key. That leads to numbers. Okay, numbers let me access the discounts. But in this case, numbers lead to money. Identity theft, for the most part, is about money. Again, we have the other elements of it, but the plurality of it. Stop me when I'm wrong, it leads to money. One of the four most sought after resources on the planet. Four most sought after resources on this planet: clean air, clean water, food, and money. Pretty much, guess we're okay with the clean air. Clean water, depending on where you're at, you get some bottled water. Food, okay, there's Shady Maples for that. But money, there's no shortage of tactics that individuals will use to get their hands on our money. And that's where identity theft plays a major role here. Some of the top hacking groups that are out there: Anonymous, DC Leaks, Fancy Bear, whether they are US, whether they are domestic or foreign, let me put it like that. These type of groups that are out here, they have different reasons for committing identity theft. Some of them do it for political reasons. Some of them do it for some social cause, and then others, they want money to fund their issues and their causes. Dragonfly, Morpho, and such. So these are a lot of hacking groups that are out there. And again, some of the latest stuff we got from the FBI, some updates, whether it's cryptocurrency, someone's been defrauded out of 100 or 350,000, been defrauded out of different amounts. The holiday season, it was open season in so many cases. I want to give a good background to this stuff because we have to understand where this stuff is coming from. But going into the new age of identity theft, marketplace, major identity theft that takes place there, and hacks and scams. Woman accused of stealing 15,000 in Facebook Marketplace and scams that are created there. They're looking for information. Hey, look, just pay us up front. We'll deliver the product. They may get a number. And once you get a number, they say they're going to take out one amount. They take out much more. Facebook Marketplace, percentage of scam types, you can see how it's risen. It's number one. And look, I'm not targeting Facebook Marketplace. Oh, yes, it's the worst place to be, but no. That's not what the Attorney General's office does. But facts are what we are going off of. In a law enforcement scenario, we go off of the facts. The Facebook Marketplace, there have been thousands of scams that have gone on out there. Things that lead to scam. And I saw Detective Romaine, you talked about romance scams. A lot of that happens on Facebook Marketplace, a lot of this stuff. The age you come from, I'll just use a line out from one of my favorite shows, Love is in the Air. And again, with a lot of feel good out there, hey, listen, I'm so-and-so, I'm single, hey, you're single, hey, maybe we could meet or greet each other. And a lot of scams take place that way. I want to jump in and out of this and talk about scams and identity theft. Right now, romance scams are hot. That is a hot scenario. Lebanon, PA. I literally was at Shady Maple. State Trooper Garcia, me and myself, we were there. Anybody here been to Shady Maple? Okay, the whole room. All right, okay, I get it. All right, we've all been there. I've never seen that much food in my life. I've only been there twice. You could literally feed the town of Edders with that place. It's a mall for food. So what happens? Lovely lady, she looked like she was in her early 60s, and she comes up to me and she says, hey, because I was standing near the gift shop where you go downstairs and go to the gift shop. And she says, can I tell you something? I said, sure. She said, this was October. In April of that year, she met a lovely man online from India. And she talked about he was really good looking and he looked like an Indian George Clooney. So I imagine he was a pretty good looking guy. That was April. By August, they are ready to see each other. They've already exchanged phone numbers. They've exchanged a lot of conversation back and forth. They've conversed. They've gotten to know each other. They are happy. He's flying here from India. India is not right around the corner. Believe me, I've been not there, but close to it. So he's taking 3 flights. His last flight before he gets to the US leaves out of Amsterdam. So what happens? Right before he's about to catch the flight, he's upgraded his flights because, tall, he needs more leg room, but he's running low on cash, and he asked her if she could just help him out with the flight, $1,994 to upgrade his flight. That is an interesting number. And I was just like, as I listened to her, I found out a few seconds later, what did she do? She just rounded it off to $2,000. And she just sent the guy $2,000. The flight landed in Philadelphia International, but he did not. She called, and started going to voicemail. She drove to Philadelphia International, maybe got hung up in customs or something. She stayed overnight at one of the airport hotels there. Yeah. Now that was August, and that was roughly about 2016. She came up to me in October, and her question to me was there any way she could get her money back? I think I speak for a few of us in here. We do not have a talent to make a good show of politics when you speak to victims. I'm one of those people. When I have to look somebody in the eyes for a living, some of us have to do that. Look somebody in the eyes and tell them the person could have been living in Cleveland, right? The person, the money is gone, the person is gone, and sorry, the money is, there's no way to get that back. And her last words from me, okay, well, that's what I thought. And she walked away, thank you. I can still remember the sundress she was wearing, and I could just, the heartbreak. And that's what leaves the carnage behind with this kind of fraud that happens online. These people are evil. They do not care about the heart or anything. They don't see any of us as victims. Scam artists see us, and identity theft folks out there see us as customers. They're in the customer service business. Sounds weird to say, but again, that keeps them in the mindset of they're actually not committing a crime. They're doing customer service, which is code for them for crime. Welcome to the world of a scam artist and an identity theft individual. Men go for it too. It happens to men too. A guy sitting not too far away in the Lebanon County area lost $24,000 to a lovely young lady. He was a well-to-do millionaire to a young lady he met in Africa online. And next thing you know, she had a personal emergency, medical emergency, and she was coming to see him, but until she got off the IV that she sent him pictures of, she needed help with her medical problems, and he was just funding it to the tune of $24,000. Then he quit funding it. He called the FBI, he called the state police, and now he was coming to me. I'm gonna file a complaint. Who do we go after? These kind of scams and frauds overlap, and this is what we talk to the public about to raise awareness. So much of this stuff is found on Marketplace, but again, even in product scenarios, what to look for. Facebook itself acknowledges the possibility of scamming on its platform. They're admitting it. Scams can happen on the buyer and seller side of a transaction. Beware of quick responses, fast payments, and urgency. You get a response immediately. After posting an item for sale on Facebook Marketplace, wait at least 12 to 24 hours before responding to see if you get any other offers. most legitimate buyers will ask for additional information about the item for sale, the condition of the item, to see the item in person before agreeing to pay. And again, potential buyers who push for personal information like your email address or your phone number or wants to pay you quickly are likely scammers. They'll generally keep it at an email level until they say, hey, can you text me this? Or can you text me that? You text them, now they have your number. It's pretty slick, it's pretty easy, pretty, they come off very good natured. But folks, so much of this leads to identity theft. And again, sending the item before payment is received, and you can just take a look at that information below there. A deal that's too good to be true. The kind of scams and the kind of fraud that are out there. How many of us have seen something and it's just like, no, I saw a Corvette online one time, and I'm a Corvette lover. I love a C8 or C7. I'm really a C5 kind of guy. But I saw it out there, and I'm like, okay, you want $4,000 for this? No way. No way. If it sounds too good to be true, probably is. Immediate interest, the buyer wants to send a text to arrange an immediate pickup of the item. That's an attempt to get your phone number, at which point the scammer could register quickly for a Google Voice number. The world we live in right now, you want to know how the scams are actually getting perpetrated? In so many cases in identity stuff, they're using apps. I could use an app right now and make myself look like I'm Kevin, make myself look like I'm you, anybody, Denise, anyone in this room. That's the world we live in. The apps are free downloads. They can do this in a heartbeat. This is why we're raising awareness, especially with Facebook Marketplace. Fake rental properties and overpayment. House advertised might be just what you're looking for, but don't send a deposit until you or someone you trust has had a chance to tour the place and make sure it is as advertised. A hot spot for this, Florida. When you talk about rental property stuff, and again, it happens all over the place. But again, a lot of folks say, listen, beachfront property in Florida, hey, a house that needs renovating, and if you invest in the renovations of it, say $50,000, and the house sells for 8 to 10 million, how much you'll get a king's ransom on top of your money? Somebody did that. And they didn't invest 50, they invested 11,000. What happened? They went down there to see the property. They paid first, went down there to see it. It was nothing but swampland. And the last thing she told me was she saw two eyes look up out the water at her and go back down. There were gators out there. You're going out there, but you're not coming back. Scams also. Buyers agree say the buyer and the seller agree on a $20 sale price, but the buyer pays $50. Tells the seller it was an error and asks for the $30 back. That isn't a problem until the bank catches up with you. The card that the seller used to pay you could have been stolen, or the check was counterfeit. You're out of the original payment plus the overpayment you returned. I know a lady in Harrisburg that happened to. This happened 5 years ago. She's still hooping and hollering over that. She wants somebody to go to jail over it, and she got her money back. But the embarrassment of it, actually, I think she wants somebody just taken care of, actually. Sir, you had a question?
No, I got stuck on that.
Oh, okay. I saw your hand go up. The realism of this and understanding how this stuff happens, it's scary at times because, again, scam artists, we all have this innocent arrogance or innocent idea about scam artists and who they are. Ed and Jocelyn, they look like Brad and Angelina before the divorce. They do, and take a look at them. I mean, walks on the beach at night, dining, all night dancing. Who doesn't like that? And I mean, they're a young couple in love, and they didn't really worry about identity theft. And the reason why is because they were the thieves. Those two individuals were the thieves. And again, she was 22 at the time, he was 25. And who did they target? People who they knew. try not to butcher the name a little bit, but Bala Kinwan, is that the name of it, right outside of Philadelphia? This is the area that they were from. That's a pretty upscale, ritzy area. I know it. There's a great cheesesteak place there. And this is the area that they were from. So they go over to friends' houses for Philadelphia Eagle games, for Flyer games, different sporting events, different social events. They go over to friends' houses, and while they were there, they targeted their credit cards, they targeted documents, and to the tune of $116,000 in goods and services they charged. She got 5 years, he got 4. She said, I could care less, whatever, blah, blah, blah. He was more remorseful, apologized to the victims, started making situation to pay back the victims. She got out of jail, went out to Arizona, got back in trouble, went right back to jail. How many times have we seen that, right? So who is an identity thief? Anyone. And according to our stats, it is painful. In so many cases, and it's about 50%, it's usually someone we know. That's painful to admit, especially a mother and a father realize that a child has victimized them. But I know too many scenarios, and I have too many stories where that has actually happened. So again, protecting our documents, protecting our information. If you have kids in college, this is a big one. Kids in college, they share PIN numbers and they share information all the time. Hey, I gotta go to the ATM. I gotta get some money out. Hey, yeah, I got to. Hey, here's my card. Get some money out for me. They share passwords. Oh yeah, hey, log on to my account. Hey, what's your password? I'm constantly talking to Penn State students, high school students, you name it, about these various scenarios. Because that can occur very easily when they start sharing this. I like you, you're my friend. Hey, listen, we're cool, we're great, we're all that. But again, I'm not giving you my information. I can't do that. There has to be a hard line taken. And again, how it's stolen. We allow ourselves to become an easy target. We lay down our documents someplace. Another thing here, up here, source of information. What's one of the biggest sources of our information? Our phones. Leave your phone at home and see what happens. See, how do you feel after you've left it at home? No, I got a better one. Leave your phone at a restaurant or a hotel. Drive about 20 miles away. What happens after you realize it's there? The next exit, you are hitting the brakes, making a U-turn, and then next thing you know, you're going back to get it. Our phones hold so many passwords and so much information nowadays. Again, it can be stolen from that pill box. Withdrawal pill bottles, and our information is on that pill bottle. Documents that we don't shred easily. These documents can be manipulated, and next thing you know, someone can get our information or commit fraud, identity theft, to have goods and services charged in our name, but change it to a PO box or change the address. That happens all the time. Who in here uses a shredder or a burn barrel? Trust me, I know some guys that tell you in a minute, they're lighting stuff up day and night. I'm like, just don't burn down, the area, but you know what I'm getting at here. And again, we fall trick to a scam. Folks, I just told a few people about this, and some folks know where I'm about to go to with this. I just got one the other day, just literally, I got Friday. Yeah, here it is, Friday at 3:08 p.m. I love it when it tells you everything. But again, PayPal. I got an email from PayPal from someone named Donna Thomas. Thanks for using our services. You just paid $385.62, and the dollar sign is at the end of it. Not at the beginning, okay? Grammatical errors, am I right? That's what you start looking for. To Josh Nathan, order payment details below. There are no details here, okay? And then transaction payment will debit next 24 hours. Nothing never happened, but again, there was a click below for additional information on there. You click on that, you start to activate things, or they could easily get inside my phone, plant a Trojan horse inside of it. Trickery. I had to get a new debit card in December. I like my old debit card. I was used to it. Grafton, North Dakota. I had to look it up. Grafton, North Dakota. Somebody tried to charge $1 to my account. And the bank caught it. And the bank said, no, they let me know. And they shut down that account. They shut down my debit card. I went over to Campbell, the Citizens. I know the guy over there very well. He gave me a new debit card. If they can penetrate and get $1, what's the next stop? Why not go for 1,000 or 2,000 or 3,000 or just drain my account, right? If I can get $1, hey, if I can crack the door and I can peek in and I can see that there's a lot in there, why not just open the door all the way and go in and get it? These are the things we have to be on the lookout for. So the question now becomes this: how often do we check our accounts? Our bank accounts, our credit card accounts? Do we have notifications so that anything that comes out of them instantly comes to our phone, or we get an email, or we get some sort of a notification from the bank? We can have this set up. When we are traveling, do we let the bank know? They put a travel notification. Hey, listen, I'm going, I don't care, I'm going to France, I'm going to Aruba, I'm going to someplace out of the country. I'm going to be going to California, I'm going to be out in California for a few days. These are things we need to do. Finally, when it comes to identity theft, this is my last module. My schedule is sort of yanking me out of here. The biggest location of the biggest asset we have, which can now be hacked, is our cars. This is the world we live in, folks. Our cars hold so much information. It was really great when you bought that car and they said, hey, you'll be able to text through it. Oh yeah, you can hook your phone up to it. You can do all these amazing things. Your car can tell you where you're going. Oh yeah, you can be in your house and you can turn your car on. You can do all these cool things. Hey, your car will tell you when it needs to be serviced. And you'll get some sort of a notification. You were like, wow, my car can do all these amazing things. You really did feel like George Jetson in the family, right? Every time technology comes out, there's a security hole that needs to be plugged. Security needs to be addressed to everything. I had a good run-in with the FBI in 2007. I've been at this for a while. And I mean good run-in is that we were both go hammering at it. So even back then, we were inundated. Fast forward now, folks, when you have vehicles that have all this technology and it has Wi-Fi to it, this is my last module here. Ask yourself, do you need certain assets or aspects of it turned on? If you don't need that Wi-Fi turned on, make sure you have it deactivated. Hey, I'm using it in my phone. I don't need to emit a Wi-Fi signal, or when the car is turned off, the Wi-Fi is no longer emitting. Okay? Ask your manufacturer. And again, Honda, Hyundai, Mercedes, BMW, Kia, and I could go on, Jeep, Ford, Chrysler, General Motors. Everybody has a different security element to it. So you have to ask the manufacturer. I cannot give you a cookie cutter, oh, do this and this will do it. Everybody has a different path for how to turn that stuff off because of what information they hold. Key fobs, you need to know how far your key fob will work with how far away your key fob will work with the car. And again, how susceptible is it to being hacked? Can you hack a key fob? The answer to that is yes. You can hack a key fob and clone the signature. Ask the manufacturer, okay, how is it? Just ask them, how is it being protected? Get letter to protecting our vehicles. They're wide open. Are you paying attention to your car when you go into Kohl's and Target, or you go into Giants, or you go into Wegmans, or wherever store you're going into? No. You're focused on what? Food, products. You're focused on what's in front of you. That vehicle right there. How vulnerable is it to an identity theft hacking scenario? Please contact manufacturers. Tesla was like pulling teeth. It was pulling teeth, and I went over there and I asked the right questions. Theirs is a bit tougher, but ask your manufacturers, is my car still emitting any signals once I turn it off? And if it is, how do I turn it off? How do I make sure that it's not emitting it? How do I shut this stuff off? So that's the last one I wanna close out with our vehicles. Folks, it's always an honor and a pleasure to talk about identity theft and to make sure you understand the latest and greatest, especially with B2B or vehicle-to-vehicle technology now. It's a different world than it was in the 60s, in the 70s, where the bank closed on Friday, and so you got enough money to cover you for the weekend. You remember those days? Now it's 24-hour access. Now it's information or money is just accessible 24 hours a day. We can just trade and basically transactions are happening at real time at any time. All we have to do is have access to a phone. Protecting our information which is shared out there. What can we do to protect ourselves? And again, if it does happen to us, who can we contact? The Attorney General's office. Identitytheft.gov. Under the Federal Trade Commission, they have websites set up for how to restore your identity. Seniors, contacting the Department of Aging on a state and a county level. Even the Department of Banking, contact the Department of Banking. We are your government. We are your public servants. We are your law enforcement. We work for you. We don't lose sight of that. Our job, plain and simple, stop me when I'm wrong, is to protect the innocent and punish the guilty. Plain and simple, that is our job. Let us go to work for you when this stuff happens. And contact the resources that I just talked about. Kevin, Denise, everyone, I want to thank you for inviting my office here today. It's always a pleasure and it's always an honor. Absolutely. And I hope to be back and we have this discussion again. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Actually, I think what happened in
Thanks, Jerry. Appreciate your help here on this performance.
Yeah, I'm gonna stick around
Awesome.
and listen to it.
A lot of information, and he's followed up with the Pennsylvania Department of Aging, Denise Ketchum, and York County Department of Aging.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Again, my name is Denise Ketchum. I work for the Pennsylvania Department of Aging, and I'm here with, let you introduce yourself.
Yeah, my name is Patricia White. I work for the York County Area Agency on Aging. I'm one of the Protective Services Supervisors.
So of course, we're glad to be here, and I just want to give a special thanks to Newbury Township Police for having us and for putting this on. We appreciate the opportunity to be with everyone today. I want to just talk a little bit about just the Department of Aging and what we do as partners, what kind of services are out there for older adults. So, you know, we really are very lucky in Pennsylvania. We have a lot of services that are available for older adults, and they range really from, you know, personal care in the home to meals to transportation to, services that support grandparents who are raising grandchildren. I mean, there's just so many services. There's senior centers and adult daycare and all kinds of things. So I hope that all of you will take a minute to really get to know your local area agency on aging. But also in the back, we did put benefits and rights books, and it really gives you a broad overview of all the services that are available through your local area agency on aging. So I'm happy to have Patty here with me because she can speak to really York County. So where I can speak to generally, you know, some of the services that we provide. We're here today to talk about, of course, protective services, but I don't want to miss the opportunity to share with you all the good resources that are out there for older adults. So I hope you'll pick up Benefits and Rights book on your way out. Okay, so I wanted to just provide an overview of the Older Adults Protective Service Act, the law that governs what Patty and I do. Want to talk about voluntary and mandatory reporting of abuse, neglect, exploitation, or abandonment. I wanted to give you specific stats on what we're seeing across the state. Patty can speak to sort of what the kinds of things they're seeing right here in York County. What you can expect from the Area Agency on Aging, whether you live right here in York County or you live in any other county, it's pretty consistent across the counties. I want to talk a little bit about cases, and we can give you some examples of the kinds of things we're seeing right here. And then, of course, we would be available to answer any questions. So I hope Patty's going to jump in and out as I'm speaking, because again, she can add some real life examples. But just to give you an overview of the law in Pennsylvania, so we have state law. We call it the Older Adults Protective Service Act, or sometimes you'll hear us call it OPSA. The law was initially passed in the late 80s. It's been amended twice to offer additional protections to adults. There's three distinct parts. So there's protective services. It's just a service that's available, one of the services available through the Area Agencies on Aging. And there's voluntary reporting. So I just want to give you a sample of an example of what that might be. So you're just a person in this world. Forget what you do for a living for just a moment. You're a person in this world and you're concerned about your neighbor. Your neighbor's been a great neighbor. Your neighbor's been your neighbor for 14 years. She's a retired school teacher. She's always dressed impeccably. She looks great. She goes out frequently with her friends, drives to lunch or to a card game. And she always speaks about, being able to afford her bills and her medications. And all of a sudden, a family member moves in. That family member may be underemployed or unemployed. And all of a sudden, you start seeing a very different pattern. You start to see yelling or hear yelling and screaming. You see bruises. Your neighbor's no longer impeccably dressed. They share with you that they're not allowed to go out with their friends. They can't use their own car anymore. They can't afford their medications. And you think to yourself, that's really a change. She's always been able to afford her medications because she's a retired school teacher. Of course, she has a pension. What's going on here? And then she starts to express to you, or you start to get the gut feeling that there's elder abuse going on. It may be physical, it may be emotional, it may be financial, but your gut says something's not right here. That's voluntary reporting. You don't have to prove a thing. You can suspect elder abuse, you can be anonymous and report, and we can take a look into that. So when I say we can look into that, we have, of course, the Department of Aging, where I work with the local area agencies on aging. They're the ones that take the reports, they do the investigations, and they put much as we possibly can in the community.
And for us at York County Aging, when we receive these reports, we look at capacity in a very, very in-depth manner. The last thing that we want to do is take anybody's independence away, anybody's individual rights away. So even when, older adults are doing something, especially financial exploitation cases, when they're getting scammed or they're giving money away, the capacity piece is real touchy. We have to look at that, and sometimes we actually have to say, well, you know what, that older adult has the capacity to make their decisions, even though their decisions are poor. It's not something that you and I would do, but they clearly understand the consequences of doing that, and we cannot overstep their personal rights.
Okay, so this just gives you a quick overview. So the Department of Aging administers this program at the local level. It's the area agencies on aging. And who's eligible? So when somebody calls in a report, we're looking at, do they meet sort of the criteria that's written in the law? So they have to be within the jurisdiction of the Commonwealth. They have to be age 60 or over. And they have to be an incapacitated older adult who's unable to perform or obtain services to maintain their physical or mental health. They're not someone who has a responsible caretaker, for whom there is no responsible caretaker, and who is at imminent risk. So while you're reporting, these are the kinds of things we're thinking about. We don't want you to worry about that. We just want you to report, and we'll take care of thinking of these things through. Again, Patty just made a really good point about the rights of individuals. We are very, very sensitive to that older adults have rights, and they have the right to make bad decisions, just like I do and you do. I mean, this morning I ate a little tiny candy bar for breakfast. That was probably not the best decision, but I have the right to make that bad decision. So adults have the right to make choices regarding their lifestyles, their relationships, their bodies, their health, even when these choices present some risks. We're all, at risk of doing something. So every time I get in my car, I'm at risk. Every time I walk out on the street, I'm at risk. Every time I use my cell phone, I'm at risk. Every time I leave my car unlocked, I'm at risk. So I have the right to make those choices. They have the right to refuse any services that we offer. So as long as they have the ability to understand that there's consequences and what they are, they have the right to refuse. So sometimes protective service will go out and offer a whole lot of things. And they can take all of them, they can take none of them, they can take some of them. And we have to work with that. I mean, hopefully we can work with older adults to sort of get our foot in the door and have them accept some, and maybe that goes well, and then they'll accept some more help, and then that goes well, and pretty soon we have a relationship built where there's a good working relationship. There is parts of this law where there's clear and convincing evidence that if we don't provide protective services, the adult is at imminent risk of death, serious injury, or serious bodily injury. We can petition the court. Now, of course, we reserve that for the last resort. We don't ever want to go before the court unless it's absolutely critical. So we'd be trying to do a lot of other things before we ever get to this point, but it really does have to be so serious that we would go before the court. Imminent risk of death, serious injury, or serious bodily injury before we would take that step.
And we have an excellent relationship with our attorneys in York County and our judges in York County, and they really, really seem to understand the abuse and neglect part of it, and won't hesitate to sign an emergency order if we feel it is absolutely necessary.
Okay, so voluntary reporting, again, is any person, so anybody here who has reasonable cause to believe that an older adult is in need of protective service may call the local area agency on aging and report. Again, you can be anonymous. You just have to have reasonable cause to believe that an older adult's in need, and there is immunity. So if you report in good faith and it turns out you're wrong, which any of us could be, you have immunity. We want to protect reporters. We want people to report. We want people to come out and let us know, give us an opportunity to go out there and check out what's going on and offer help. Mandatory reporting on employee or administrator of a facility. I talked earlier, nursing home, personal care home, daycare, dom care, home health. If you're an employee or administrator of those facilities, then you have reasonable cause to suspect the recipient's a victim of abuse, you are required by law to report that. And then there's a process. So they report it verbally to the area agency on aging, and then they follow up with a written report as well.
And when we receive a report to our office, no matter if it's mandatory or a volunteer, We categorize that by priority, and we see that report in no less than 72 hours.
So in addition to that first level of mandatory reporting, if the people, so say I'm working in a nursing home and I'm reporting something that rises to the level of sexual abuse, serious physical injury, serious bodily injury, or suspicious death, then not only do I report to the Area Agency on Aging, but I also report to law enforcement. I also report to the Department of Aging. So sometimes as law enforcement, you'll be getting reports because we're required to do so by law. So I like to be with law enforcement to make sure everyone's on the same page, like, hey, why are you calling me? This is a requirement of our law. So the Area Agencies on Aging would often contact Newbury Township to say, hey, this is something that's going on. We're required to, by law, to report. Or sometimes we're actually contacting the Attorney General's office with the same sorts of reports. So all abuse, mandatory abuse, is reported to the Area Agency on Aging, and then there's additional reporting requirements if there's something very serious, like one of these 4 serious abuse claims.
And just remember that just because maybe police are already actively involved, York County Aging Protective Services is a separate entity, and we do our own investigation. So just because police are involved, don't think that, maybe we shouldn't report it to the aging because, the police are going to handle it. Make that report to us and let us get involved as well.
Yeah, it's a great point. And I think it's just, thinking about a couple different perspectives. I mean, law enforcement is looking at it from their angle, but we're also looking at it from how do we help the older adult? So we like to take care of that part, sort of the social services part, while law enforcement is doing their responsibility as well. So I want to talk just briefly about what puts older adults at risk and what we see a lot. And I know Patty can jump in. I mean, she sees these things every day. But one of the biggest things is social isolation. So you meet someone, say you're living in a senior high-rise, and you meet with, the maintenance man, and all of a sudden the maintenance man doesn't really want you talking to your friends, it doesn't let your neighbors involved, and all of a sudden they know everything there is to know about your finances, and they start isolating you from your friends and your family. That's a red flag. So social isolation. Of course, if an older adult has physical or cognitive impairment and they're dependent upon someone else, that's a red flag. That can really set someone up to be at risk. Mental illness, substance abuse, accessible assets, including pensions and insurance. So I work for the Department of Aging. People who have pensions like retired school teachers, retired state employees, railroad, veterans, those people have assets and everybody knows it, but they have an income coming in. So again, red flag, they know who we are. Or they have assets. They may have, people see you with a really nice car, or they know what you used to do, or they see a house or a farm or something. They see these assets and they're very entitled. They want what you have or what you've worked for. Again, the sense of entitlement, and I hate to say this, but a lot of times these things are perpetrated by family and friends. As Jerry said, people you know. It's somebody you know. And we see that in protective service a lot. Dependence on the caregiver. So you're a person who needs assistance from another to, your daily activities, and that puts you at risk. And then, of course, we do see a fair amount of intergenerational domestic abuse, so domestic violence type situations.
Just to hit on the sense of entitlement, one of the biggest things that we're seeing at our office is power of attorneys. Power of attorneys who break their fiduciary responsibility. And it's usually one of the kids or the grandkids who were named the power of attorney, and they have that sense of entitlement of, well, I'm the power of attorney, I'm on this bank account, so mom or dad or grandma or grandpa's funds are my funds. I can use them how I please. And then you get also the sense of entitlement, well, I'm the beneficiary. When mom or dad or grandma or grandpa passes away, that money's going to be mine anyway. Why can't I spend it now? Or that money's my inheritance. It's mine to spend now if I so choose. Be very, very careful with power of attorneys. You're breaking your fiduciary responsibility if you're using that older adult's funds for anything other than something to benefit them.
Great point, and we do see that a lot across the Commonwealth. So I wanted to share a little bit about what I'm seeing. I've been doing this work for about 15 years, and 15 years ago, we had about 8,000 allegations of elder abuse annually in Pennsylvania. We've now crested 55,000. So every single year I've been doing this work, it's 11 to 26% increase every single year. So total reports, 55,457. of those, about 76% are regarding older adults. Some, in Pennsylvania, if some of you may not know this, we have protections now across the lifespan. So we have child protective services, then we have adult protective services for individuals 18 to 59 living with disabilities. That's housed in Department of Human Services. And then we have what Patty and I do is older adult protective services. So we really are, again, very lucky in Pennsylvania. So about 76% of all the reports that come in are about older adults, and that's a 63% increase in the last 5 years. So that's huge. We don't see that in other types of abuse. Of the reports that get about 88% of all reports that come in are appropriate for us to investigate. And of those, about 40% are substantiated, meaning the older adult is in need of protective services. So what are we seeing? We see a lot of self-neglect, right? Because we see a lot of older adults who are just no longer able to care for themselves, or they have untreated or undertreated mental health, underlying behavioral health needs. And so we see that. It's an easy thing to go out and identify and substantiate and really try to help an older adult. We see a lot of caregiver neglect, whether it's in home care or in a facility type setting, with to transfer from one surface to another, bed to chair or vice versa. And for whatever reason, they fail to implement that care plan and the person falls and breaks their hip. We see a lot of caregiver neglect type scenarios. And then of course, the final one is financial exploitation. Now, 15 years ago, we never talked about financial exploitation. But in the last, I'm gonna say 3 to 5 years, it's become number 3 consistently. So a lot of financial exploitation, a lot of cash going out. So, really literally cash going out of things like ATMs and that kind of thing, or cash withdrawals. That's the number 1 that we see. So Governor Wolf at the time signed an executive order in 2019 to do a study on financial exploitation. So I just wanted to share a little bit of what that study found. The report was published in September of 20. We looked at, during that sample, we looked at 446 substantiated cases in 14 counties across the Commonwealth. Most of our victims were age 70 and older. They were single, widow, divorced, and Caucasian or white. Perpetrators were family members or care providers. Again, these are people usually very close and involved with the older adult regularly. The average loss to each victim was about $40,000, and totally it's close to 12.5 million if you look at all of our cases across the Commonwealth. If we looked at all financial exploitation cases, the loss would likely be in Pennsylvania 58 million, because we know that financial exploitation and all elder abuse is underreported. So if we looked at what the statistics say nationally, 1 in 4 or 1 in 44 are reported. So if we looked at that kind of money, we're really looking at a huge amount of money that's being stolen from older Pennsylvanians. And again, I just want to reiterate that most exploitation is cash. It's either in person, they literally take an older adult to the bank and say, let's withdraw X, or they're using their ATM. Yeah, Jared.
Those 14 counties, is that just you pick them just randomly, like 14? Is there specific, like regional? Is it any more regional?
No, it was a cross section of just 14 counties across the Commonwealth. So it wasn't just in one region. But you can see it's a huge amount of money. $40,000 is a lot of dollars to lose. And then when you're talking about the millions, when you're really looking at cases. So what can you do to help? My number 1 thing is get to know your area agency on aging. That's my number 1, takeaway. If nothing else, get to know them, support them, get to know what services are out there, get to feel comfortable with calling them. But you can learn about scams. You can come to things like this and listen to programs like this that just talk about what's happening. You can go out on websites, like the AG's website, Department of Aging's website, the county websites. You can watch out for it with every interaction. I think Jerry did a good job of sort of putting out there that these kinds of things happen no matter where you are or what you're doing. So just keeping a watchful eye. You can talk about this with trusted family members and friends. And I talk about this wherever I go. I'm happy to talk about it so that people just start to understand that there really is elder abuse and elder financial exploitation. Even though, we see a lot of like animal abuse commercials, or we see a lot of child abuse commercials. We just don't hear a lot about elder abuse. So we are starting to do a campaign, so you might see some commercials. We're starting to get brochures out and those kinds of things that I think will be helpful. Develop ways to protect yourself. And, you know, I know that you guys say these things a lot when you're out on cases, but don't take calls from someone you don't know or you haven't called them. Just don't take the call. Talk to your family and friends about big decisions you're making. So if you're going to make a big decision, like sending money to someone or giving a loan out to somebody, have a discussion with somebody you trust. Make sure that they feel comfortable with those kinds of things. Verify the identity of anyone who's contacting you. You can check with police. You can check with your local bank, family, friends, anyone, the AG's office. Call the Area Agency on Aging to say, is this legit? These people are contacting me. Is this even something I should respond to? And again, Jerry did a really great job of saying, don't give your numbers to anybody. I don't care what number it is, don't give it out. Whether it's an account number, social security, gift card numbers, never, ever, ever give your numbers to anyone. And then of course, one of the things I think that's so important is if you do feel like, oh, I think I just did something I shouldn't have done, or I feel like maybe this is a scam, report immediately. Sometimes we can get lucky and we can get money back. Sometimes we can stop a transaction early, but we have to know about it. So if you think that you've been victimized, immediately contact your local area agency on aging, contact police. Maybe there's something we can do to stop that. So what can you expect from protective services? The ability to report anonymously. Your report will be taken seriously. The report will be categorized. Patty talked about that. How quick are we going to get out there? Some cases, they get out of their chair right then and there and go. So physical abuse, sexual abuse, they're going to get out of their chair right there. But they do have, as Patty said earlier, 72 hours to respond to some. So very quick response time. There'll be a comprehensive and unbiased investigation within these required time frames. They may visit jointly with someone else. Maybe they talk to you with law enforcement. There will be confidentiality and safeguards for cooperation. Patty mentioned that, which I think is so important. We don't give anybody's identity out. It's part of the law. We cannot tell people who reported because we want people to report. We want to protect your identity. And then, of course, that assistance and services would be offered to a consumer or their family if the case is substantiated. So I don't know, Patty, did you have anything else you wanted to talk about what they can expect as they call?
Nothing really on that one, but, you know, just again, with the accepting of services, when a case is substantiated, you know, we always look at the older adults' rights. You know, like Denise said, they have the right to refuse all services we've offered. They have the right to accept some and not others, or they could accept the entire services that we offer. It is their right.
So I said earlier, you can call direct to your local area agency on aging. So you can call in this county, you can call right to York County, or we do have a 1-800 line where you can call. Either place will take your report and get it to protective services where they can do their investigation and offer services when and if necessary. I'm going to stop there and see if there's any questions. Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you again.
Thank you.
you.
I'll give this to them.
Hey, so I am Samantha. I am with New Cumberland Federal Credit Union. I'm the Compliance Operations Specialist. We have Mary Jane, who is also with New Cumberland, and she is the BSA fraud clerk. So we are in the compliance world where we're finding all of this financial exploitation for not only seniors, but anybody in the banking world. financial world who's being taken advantage of. A lot of this is scams, like repeating pretty much what everybody else is saying. The scams nowadays are absolutely ridiculous. They're everywhere. You can't trust anybody. It's really unfortunate, actually. So, that's me. The objectives here, we're going to review how we are required to do reporting and training for the credit union and our staff members, and the recommendations to prevent it, what we are supposed to do as a financial institution to try and prevent money getting stolen or taken advantage of, and the red flags that we look for and that we train for our staff to find these things. Obviously, I have a disclaimer that it's not illegal advice. So, referencing some of the things that were already referenced, there's over 5 million victims annually. Only 1 in 8 cases of abuse are actually reported, and only 1 in 44 of those are financial abuse is reported. The average loss, this is within the USA, is 41,800, and then it's 2.9 billion to 36.5 billion within the USA that is lost annually. So the definition of exploitation is basically using your information against your will to benefit and gain profit from this, their belongings and resources. Our role as a credit union, we have a Senior Safe Act. That's what we follow as far as training. We have to make sure that our tellers and our staff and all the departments are trained across the board. Each department is trained differently because loans has different interactions than the tellers do, or collections, or accounting, and everybody reaches their people individually differently. So this particular SAFE Act is training. We have to train our people according to their department and the different red flags that they have for their department. And this protects us as far as if we report it. If we don't train our people and we report it on good faith, essentially they could come back and say that we're not safe under this. So the training, it's not mandated, but it is required, basically saying that we have to train our people. We have to make sure that they know what they're doing when it comes to reporting and looking for the red flags. And who's trained? So training has to be for all the employees and the officers. So the compliance department has a compliance officer. That is the main person that's in charge of reporting any kind of suspicious activity or elder abuse to the law enforcement. And then anybody who serves as a supervisor or in compliance or legal function, so any of our branch managers or assistant branch managers or anybody up front with the tellers, and then anybody who is in contact with the senior citizen. Obviously that's every department. They reach call center, they call in obviously accounting, they're in charge of all the accounts to see how they're using the money. Collections, that's a big one. We just recently had one where a vehicle came back to us because it wasn't being paid, and as we dug a little bit more, it was a grandchild who convinced her grandmother to buy a Tahoe for her. And so the grandmother was the signer on the loan, and the grandchild was the co-signer because her credit and income didn't match, and then it ended up getting repoed and went against the grandmother's stuff. So we had to report that as obviously that's taking advantage of the situation and her goodwill to co-sign on that or sign for that loan. What's included in our training is how to identify the exploitation. So red flags that we train seeing what kind of behavior they have, or what kind of actions that they do, or what kind of transactions they do, like taking out a lot of cash, or doing wires, or giving their information out. And I'm in charge of doing transfers between banks, so transferring money out of their account to a different institution. There's a lot of fraud with that because people use their bank account information, just give it out. It's crazy how many people give their bank information out. We had a gentleman who he said somebody owed him money, so he gave out his routing number and account number and linked accounts with this person so that they could pay him back what was owed. And essentially, they took the money out of his account. So linking accounts on any kind of this, we call it P2P, so like the Zelle and the PayPal and any of the P2P, person-to-person apps, there's a lot of fraud in there because there's no tracing it really. It goes into a middleman, which is the P2P, and then out somewhere else. So we can't get that money back. It's gone once it's in there. And we have so many things that we say, don't use that. Like, don't use the PayPal. Zelle's a big one. A lot of banks won't even use Zelle right now. The marketplace is something I didn't even really realize how much the marketplace was used. But that makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of people. We have people who come in with checks where they say, this person paid me via check. They're selling a car online. So if somebody doesn't live in the state, so they send out a check and said, I'm going to buy this car with a sight unseen. And the check ends up coming back bad. So now they're out that money and they potentially sent the car off. Yeah. So we also do instructions on how to report suspected exploitation, who to report it to. So depending on the department, who do they tell? Does a teller go right to law enforcement? No. The teller will go to their manager. Managers will go to the compliance department, or accounting comes to the compliance department. Ultimately, it's supposed to come to us, and then we reach out to Department of Aging or law enforcement as far as the degree of it. Protecting the privacy is the same thing that was already talked about. Is obviously it's completely confidential. Any kind of reporting, even if it's a member coming to us saying that they feel a certain type of way, or if it's our employees saying that they want to report it, everybody's protected so that nobody gets, their identity out there with the report. And then again, we're going to just tailor it to each individual department. So each state is a little bit different. So the definition of senior, depending on what state you're in, it's different ages. I believe Pennsylvania is 60 or 65. And then we, as Pennsylvania, certain states allow you to delay disbursement. So if we had a person that came in, a lady who wanted to wire out $20,000 to her new boyfriend in Turkey, and we could put a delay on that, stating that we only allow $3,000 to go out at a time. So she was only allowed to do $3,000 at that point and not $20,000, so that we, even though we knew it was going to be a loss, it wasn't going to be a $20,000 loss. It was a $3,000 loss. So we have the right to be able to say, hey, relax, not all of it at once, or delay it. If it's a check, we can put it on a hold, like a 10-day hold, instead of immediately giving those funds available. We just stopped one last week. A lady came in with a check that she received because she got a new job offer, and they sent her a $6,000 check in the mail because of her new job to buy things for her job, and it ended up coming back fake. So she didn't lose any money, thankfully, because we put it on hold in her account. But I mean, that's the kind of things. If you get checks in mails, don't believe it.
If they tell you to print off the check off your computer or something, most likely it's going to come back fraud. If they have to tell you to print that check out, it's going to be fraud.
We have a capability through our app to take a picture of your check, and it immediately gets deposited into your account. So we see a lot of people taking pictures of the computer screen to a check on a computer screen trying to get it to deposit. So these people, the fraud people will tell you to do these ridiculous things that obviously just don't make sense. So, use your common sense as far as certain checks or transfers or, gift cards is a big thing as well. The mandating reporting, she already went over with whether it's mandated for us as a credit union. I believe we are absolutely mandated because if we see something, we have to report it. And then for financial records from law enforcement, if we have anybody come up to us with their detecting any kind of abuse or financial exploitation, we have to give up the bank records so that they can investigate and see if what we've claimed or what somebody else has claimed is true. The recommendations are to develop internal protocols and procedures, the training, obviously, and then to use technical devices for finding the elder abuse. So our apps or our IT department has a lot of things that will red flag. So when I do the transfers between accounts, it red flags anything that's if they recently changed their email or if they recently changed their phone number or recently changed their address. Those are red flags because if your account's hacked, these people are going to go in and change all of your personal information so that you don't get notified. So those are red flags. If all this stuff in the account is changed and then $3,000's getting transferred, that's probably not them. Or we had somebody who they recently just got a phone call saying that it was the bank and they needed to verify an account number over the phone, and they asked for the reference number over the phone, and here it was a hacker, because we don't ever ask that over the phone. We never ask any kind of verifying information like that over the phone. So these people gave it up, and then 3 days later, they had like $4,000 transferred out of their account. Now it came to us, and I red flagged it, and I saw it, and I was able to stop it, but they had to do an entire account switch and switch all of their account information because these people had all of that now. So we had to lock down their online banking and shut down their cards and give them all new information because they got a phone call to verify their account information. And then reporting is to you guys, the common red flags is the change in behavior. We have members, so credit unions versus banks. Credit unions have members, and we have a lot of people that come in that are regulars, and we know how they act, what transactions they do. We have Mr. Burns, he comes in all the time, and they do certain transactions that so you can see whether they're off, where it's not a normal situation, or they're just like not acting correctly. So we have that training to tell the tellers, hey, know your members and know if they're not acting correctly. If a member is confused or can't explain transactions, if they don't really check their bank account very often and they don't really pay attention to the transactions, that's something people can take advantage of. Start using their account and they wouldn't even know for X amount of time. So if member appears neglected, refusal to make eye contact, that's usually when somebody comes in and they have like somebody with them. So like a grandparent comes in and they have their grandchild with them, and the grandchild is doing all the talking, and the grandparent is kind of just standing there on the side and not really doing anything, even though it's their account. So that's a good sign that it's not necessarily intended for the right purposes for that person. Accompanied by a third-party speaker, that's usually like most of the time it's a family member. So that's where we see a lot of this abuse is family or somebody that they know. They seem nervous as a third party. There is sometimes where it's they seem like uncomfortable with the situation because they probably know that it shouldn't be happening. We have an older lady who her daughter comes in all the time, and she kind of just doesn't say anything. She just stands there and doesn't say anything because she doesn't speak English, and so the daughter does all of the stuff for her, and she knows that like it's not supposed to be used for those reasons. Like her daughter uses it for her own. She transfers it over into her account and uses it for her own purposes. Other red flags is unusual volume of account activity. So if they don't use their account very often, and then all of a sudden they're doing all these transfers or all these cash out or a lot of activity that they just don't usually do. Frequent withdrawals. Changes in usual behavior, requests from third-party access to the account, suspicious signatures or handwriting on checks. We have checks where it looks like somebody signed it, but then it's a whole different handwriting for writing out the amount or who it's to and what have you. So there's a lot of people who will ask, hey, just sign this check and I'm going to write it out for this amount and take it to the bank, and it's not an accurate amount. That's debit card changes beyond their capabilities. So there's a lot of different like ATM withdrawals or transfer. We have over the phone a PAN system where you do call in and transfer over the phone as well.
May I ask a question about this, please? This happened to me, and there were no red flags. I had 16 transactions in one day with identity theft, fake Gmail account, and fake PayPal debit card, which I'm not even part of PayPal. Would you have immediately called a person like this? Would you have red flagged this immediately?
Yeah, we would have red flagged it as far as when we open an account, we have a member fill out a questionnaire as far as what transactions and what activity they're going to be doing in their account. So if they say, I'm most likely just going to let this money sit here and accrue interest, and I'm not going to do a whole lot of transactions, then we link that with their account, and anytime that particular activity isn't happening, it throws up red flags, or say transfers or wires or anything like that. So we ask them what they're going to be doing with their account, and when it's not that particular activity, we say, okay, that's not normal. That's not their normal activity, and we'll usually freeze the account, and then we'll call you guys and let you know, hey, verify the information if it was you or not.
So basically within 24, 48 hours, something like that?
Yeah, usually it's something. We also have a third-party fraud app that's linked to our cards themselves, and they will contact you if the transaction is weird. So if you use your chip in your card all the time, and then all of a sudden you swipe it, that's a red flag, because they're like, why are you swiping it? This person always uses their chip. So they'll send you, they'll do a phone call, or sometimes they send a text and say, hey, is this really you? Did you really do that transaction? And they'll red flag it as well. So
Thank you.
yeah.
My bank didn't.
Oh, that's unfortunate. What,
It's unfortunate.
do you mind telling me what bank it was?
Am I allowed to do that?
Other red flags, these just kind of repetitive, is checks and wires. Wires are big right now for stuff. We had a gentleman who I was still a teller at this point actually. He came up and he asked to wire out $35,000 to his son in California because his son is buying a car over there. And it just seemed off. Like he didn't have a lot of information. He didn't know like the year, make, and model of the car. Like I was just I'm a car person, so I was picking him proud and at like what are you getting? What's going on? And he couldn't answer the questions correctly, so I kind of threw it over to my supervisor and was like, I don't feel like this is legit. So after she took him into her office, he doesn't even have a son. He didn't even have a son. And it was just this, it was somebody pretending that it was like Netflix, actually. Like Netflix overpaid them X amount of dollars, and he was supposed to send it back to them so he was wiring back this overpayment from Netflix, and it was just weird.
And a lot of the times they'll tell the older person what to say to their banks or what to say to whoever they're going to
Yeah.
do anything.
Yeah, there's a lot of, most of the time there is instructions. There was mail going around when I first started in the compliance department. People were prioritized, mail was going out all across different states that had a check, like a bank check, a cashier's check, and then instructions on how to take this to your bank or remote deposit or through the ATM. And it was fake, like it wasn't a real check, but they had instructions on saying, hey, say it's this or say it's that, or do it a certain way so that it doesn't get caught until, 10 days later and the money's already gone. Right now, we learned about a new way that they're doing crypto investment scams. So they will send you emails or messages, phone calls, text messages, asking you to go put money into like a Bitcoin ATM. So Bitcoin and crypto ATMs are really big right now, and you put your money in and you don't really get anything back. You get electronic money.
I've never been a fan of Bitcoin or crypto, anything. I've never been a fan. Have you seen like an escalation, or has it just started off high when it comes to fraud and that nature of Bitcoin or this crypto thing?
I think it's an escalation at this point because a lot of people didn't understand it at first. Like we didn't even know what Bitcoin or cryptocurrency was for a while. So the
And that's
more
a
that
problem.
people are understanding it, they're starting to invest in it. And then that's when the fraud is picking up. So yeah, we've definitely seen a bigger increase in it recently. We actually don't even associate with businesses that try and do that because it's just, there's too many red flags and there's too many just things that, it's electronical money basically.
Honestly, if we see any Bitcoin going on in your account, we'll see that as a red flag and we'll kind of watch it. And if it starts to escalate more in that account, then we'll kind of be like, okay, we're going to start asking a little bit more questions.
Look, being a techie, I knew what it was about when it first came out. I knew they were trying to reinvent the currency system to like a electronic currency.
Yeah, yeah,
There were 200 ways
Yeah.
that could have gone sideways,
yeah,
and how people could have siphoned, and how people, well, again, in America, what our currency, what the value over here versus the euro versus the real versus other currency across the world. And I've been around the world and I've had other currency when I had to travel.
yeah.
And I saw what they were trying to do, but how does it basically translate in that currency to that country and basically
Yeah,
the
yeah.
value of it? And then bringing it back here, and then who was doing it? Because was it one company? Was it other companies that were involved in this?
Yeah.
So you're getting involved with various companies now that are doing Bitcoin, and they have their own standards.
It's
There-
crazy, yeah.
They're doing it was 200 different directions, and I just didn't know where you were. And you're telling me you're in banking, and you're telling me, you didn't understand it
Yeah.
when it came out. That's a major flag right there.
Yeah,
And I'm looking at you two, okay, this is what you do for a living. We do one thing for a living, you do another thing, but we get it.
yeah,
That bothered the crap out of me, and I'm not using colorful metaphors here.
yeah.
I might be after 5, but
Yeah, yeah.
but again, I just wanted to get your take on Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. Now I
Yeah,
got it.
just
Thank
run away, don't do
thank
it.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, that's it.
I
It's
think,
just,
I think a lot of us just have that curiosity.
yeah, I mean, the intentions behind it, I think were good in some ways, but I think it was more of a quick gain. There was a gentleman who did it was a game. What was that thing that we learned about at Tuna? He invented a game. He played off of a really popular game,
Yeah.
and he made his
It was,
own.
yeah, it was like an old Netflix show or a Netflix show that came out, and it was,
Startup.
no, it was
Forget what it was
Squid
called.
Games, I think it
I
was.
think
It
something
was a
with Squid, yeah.
Netflix.
Another show was Startup.
Yeah.
That was really good on that whole thing.
Yeah. Well, this gentleman, it was a kid. He played off of the popularity of this particular game or show, and he created an account for Bitcoin named after that. So then all of these people just kind of flooded in and made that particular Bitcoin value skyrocket. And he wasn't intending to do that, I guess, but all of a sudden he had money overnight, and he vanished. Like, he took all of that money then. So I mean, that's where the trustworthiness of all of these companies, you don't know who they are. You can't physically go to one of these companies and say, oh, I have an established relationship with you. It's electronic, you know. Most of them are actually ATMs at this point. Like,
In our training, we're still learning more about crypto. We're still trying to figure out exactly what it is, where it comes from, and how we can help people that get caught up in it.
yeah, definitely red flags. That's they're asking people to put money into these ATMs and give it. It's a virtual wallet at the ATM. So they're asking people to put a certain amount of money into the ATM and then put it into this particular wallet, and it will be an investment or it will go somewhere. And it's not. It's a fraudulent wallet, and it's instantly transferred right out of that account, and you don't see it again.
Thank you very much for that.
Yeah. So basically what we teach our staff is don't assume that somebody else has already said something. If you think something's suspicious, say it or report it or something. We have lines of tellers, and one of them could be dealing with a transaction that's weird, and they all see it. We want them all to report it. So we want everybody's point of view on it. You just don't expect the guy next to you, oh, he probably is going to say something. You know, if you see something, say something. That's our biggest thing. But that is all I have.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
for that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry. Thank you. Thank you.
Are you off there? Still recording?
Is the recording done?
All right, I'd like to thank all the partners here that came out to provide presentations and information on on their specialties within elder abuse and fraud and so forth. Jerry from the Attorney General's office, Denise and Patty from the Agency on Aging, both state and local, and then Samantha and
Mary Jane.
I'm sorry,
Mary Jane.
Mary Jane. I apologize.
No, that's
So I appreciate for all the help. And as you see, there's a lot of information, and there's more information than just what we went over here today, even over the last hour and 40 minutes. So thank you again, and